Hi, welcome to our group and our project, the Green Globe certification of Serre Chevalier Valley Briançon Ski Resort and its application to Steamboat Springs Ski and Resort Corporation. I'm Colleen.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Steven. So for an overview of our presentation today, first we'll talk about Serre Chevalier Valley Briançon Ski Resort and how they adopted Green Globe certification and how it improved their practices. And then we'll talk about Steamboat Springs Ski Resort Incorporation and how they could benefit from using Green Globe certification to improve all aspects of their business as a tourism business and minimize negative impacts. And then first we're going to talk about our thesis, and then we'll talk about sociocultural impacts, economic impacts, and environmental impacts. And then we'll present our conclusion, and we have some questions to wrap up the presentation.
So first, an overview of Serre Chevalier Valley Briançon Ski Resort. Briançon is a French town of almost 12,000 full-time residents, but in the winter season, the population triples. They have 81 slopes, and they're about the third the size of Steamboat Springs with 1,000 acres of skiable terrain. They spent 8 years remodeling their business practices to receive the Green Globe certification, so they're really looking towards being a sustainable ski corporation, especially in a delicate ecosystem such as the French Alps. For the Green Globe certification, it was founded in 1994, and this certification assesses travel and tourism businesses' sustainability with 4 different criteria. These are sustainable management, social, economic, cultural heritage, and then finally environmental factors. They have over 380 compliance indicators, so they have a lot of different things that businesses must meet in order to get the certification, as seen by Serre Chevalier. Independent auditors screen certified member businesses. They are continually screened and audited throughout the certification. And the certification has training and education and marketing services in 83 countries, so it's definitely a worldwide certification. Here's a good little experience of the hot Alp experience at Serre Chevalier. We have a little video. So while the town itself is fairly small and comparable to Steamboat Springs, as seen in this map here, they do focus a lot on their winter tourism, and they do have many recreational activities that they're able to employ throughout the seasons. So they are a very destination-friendly destination.
And Steamboat Ski and Resort Corporation is the Colorado mountain business that we're going to be focusing on. In 1963, the Steamboat Springs ski area was opened. So there's a lot of historical significance in terms of ski culture in Colorado associated with Steamboat. They have 6 peaks and 3,000 acres of terrain and an 84-year-old Olympic heritage. So many Olympic athletes are born and raised in Steamboat because of the conditions. So it's kind of famous for that. And here is a map of the mountain showing some of the lifts and trails you could use. And then relative to Colorado is where Steamboat is on this map, a little west of Fort Collins in northwest Colorado. And our thesis is Steamboat Ski and Resort Corporation must meet various requirements of the Green Globe certification in order to preserve its cultural significance to Colorado, ensure its use of natural resources is not exhaustive, and employment of sustainable economic practices with the goal of guaranteeing that it will be a long-lasting attraction in Colorado.
So first, we look at the sociocultural impacts of adopting the Green Globe certification as seen at Serre Chevalier. Most ski resorts are highly commercialized and owned by large corporations. So through the use of the Code of Behavior and historical transparency, Green Globe aims to promote local interests above those of residing corporations. Sociocultural aspects of a destination include history, culture, people, and community. They all meld to create a unique amalgam of local spirit. It's really important to protect the local sociocultural quirks of an area. It creates a lasting, memorable tourism experience. As seen in the Code of Behavior, the business follows established guidelines or a code of behavior for visits to culturally or historically sensitive sites in order to minimize visitor impact and maximize enjoyment. A 2019 study by Zare, they found that togetherness, independence, and control, spontaneity and flexibility, as well as distinctiveness create the most impact on tourists. So fostering a lasting impression of an area, it becomes more sacred than just to the locals. It becomes sacred to a larger community, and they'll want to protect it more. So by producing more people who care about the area, then we're going to be able to adopt more sustainable behaviors around using and maintaining the area. It also helps to market to a higher caliber of tourists who will respect the mountain. Serre Chevalier markets their experience as an emotion, a feeling that we feel at the bend of a path, on a terrace in the sun, around a good meal, during a walk in our village, or a simple exchange with someone from the country. They really make you feel like you're part of the community when you're a tourist, and it helps to want to preserve the delicate area. This can be adopted by Steamboat Springs by highlighting our local indigenous cultures, especially those of the Native American Ute and Arapaho tribes. They have historically been known to be respectful of the land and sustainable usage of everything around them, so it'd be good for Steamboat to adopt that as well. We can see it with the historical transparency that Green Globe sets as a criteria. The business uses elements of local art, architecture, or cultural heritage in its operations, design, decoration, food, or shops, while respecting the intellectual property rights of local communities. So as seen in Briançon, it's a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site because it has French and Roman heritage just throughout the town, and it's protected. They are able to keep their history at the forefront and able to create the lasting visitor experience in order to preserve it. And once again, using the Ute and Arapaho Native American tribes, they would use the Yampa Valley that Steamboat Springs is in summer for its hunting and fishing, as well as their natural hot springs. So by incorporating indigenous culture in the ski resort, we can further promote the natural culture of the area and bring social power back to people who are hidden from history. And we'll be able to, with new businesses and jobs, improve levels of service, renewed sense of place, we'll be able to embrace heritage, and the community will experience a return of local power. Of course, we'll have to do this with permission from the local Native American residents as not to exploit their culture. As seen, they do it exceptionally well at Serre Chevalier with the Green Globe certification.
And next, we're going to be looking at some of the economic impacts of tourism in Steamboat Springs and how Green Globe and Serre Chevalier's practices can improve the positive ones and lower the negative impacts. So first, I'll look at tourism's economic impacts on Steamboat Springs, economic sustainability through environmentally conscious business decisions, and then how to utilize the marketing mix for economic sustainability. So since tourism started becoming more popular in Steamboat Springs, there have been a decline in agricultural-based economies there and an increase in recreational and natural resource-based economies. This was coupled along with a rapid increase in population, a change in demographics like more seasonal residents who come for the ski season or to work at the ski resort, as well as a rise in tensions among the native, rural, and new residents. There is still some agricultural land there, but that land is now much more valuable monetarily for tourism and real estate. So that has caused housing prices to rise as well as the cost of living. So this has forced some rural residents and seasonal workers to move into the outskirts of town, or creating gateway communities, which has contributed to the rise in tensions. Some of Green Globe's criteria, like local employment, fair trade, and supporting local entrepreneurs, can help to decrease some of these negative impacts. SSRC can directly support the residents by working with local businesses. This not only creates a more authentic tourism experience by using authentic steamboat businesses, but it also helps keep the indirect tourism impacts from tourism income inside Steamboat Springs and helps produce the multiplier effect so that seasonal workers and employees are spending the money they earned from SSRC actually inside Steamboat rather than outside communities. And the other Green Globe criteria of employee protection make sure that employees are actually paid enough to live, eat, and receive healthcare where they work. So this is pretty important in terms of hiring local residents. You actually have to pay them enough to live where they work. Next, I'll be looking at some environmentally conscious business decisions that can help economic sustainability. So reducing waste and reusing its resources by implementing the elements of a circular economy, by incorporating more sustainable waste management and resource use. They're able to spend less on waste management by investing in composting and reusable energy. While it is a large initial investment, they end up saving a lot on operational costs in the future, creating a net positive income in terms of this investment. Also using products with longer life cycles, make sure that they're buying supplies less frequently and creating less waste, and using waste from tourism products and practices to create alternative energy will help make the business more environmentally and economically sustainable. Other business strategies they should consider would be not developing agricultural land into residential areas, lodging, or other tourism-related businesses in order to preserve its uniqueness. Tourists come to Steamboat in order to see how a ski area can also be in line with ranching culture in Colorado. This ranching culture, it stimulates tourism. One proposed project that would have converted ranching land to urban and residential use could have cost Steamboat $8 million in tourism revenue. So it is a big draw for people to see how it all plays out. Product diversification strategies also help the longevity of tourism in a destination rather than just relying on natural snowfall to propel the winter season. They need to invest in other seasonal activities in the summer, spring, and fall, so that they're not just relying on something as turbulent as snowfall, which is becoming less and less reliable as climate change worsens. So some things that they should consider, by not developing agricultural land, they can use that agricultural land for viewing and touring. One last strategy is the concerned citizen strategy. And this is when a business goes beyond what their federal or regional government requires in terms of environmental protections, and they seek to make their business environmentally conscious. This is seen as more positive than businesses who just do what's required of them to increase productivity or just follow laws. This ends up decreasing operational costs and negative environmental impacts, as well as increases a positive perception of the business. And lastly, utilizing the marketing mix for economic sustainability. A sustainability tourism marketing model considers sustainability at all stages of the planning process. So planning out the marketing plan, implementing it, and in the control stage, looking at where you need to improve. So sustainability is considered at all stages of this. Consumers no longer just expect companies to produce a quality product. They also want to know how the company is being environmentally sustainable, how the company is helping their employees in the community that they reside in. And that's kind of a newer development with a more eco-conscious generation. So this not only generates value for the tourist and the tourism company, but for society and the environment as a whole. So all aspects of the marketing mix, price, place, people, supply chain, etc., all need to be environmentally, socioculturally, and economically sustainable. One way to do this is through full cost pricing. This would include the negative externality involved with, let's say, aero travel and to the price of the tourism product in order to counter harmful environmental impacts. This can help deter people from flying domestically and maybe using alternative forms of travel like carpooling. And also the increased price can be used to invest in renewable energy. And this is more effective when the company educates their customers about the price increase. Otherwise, they're just increasing the price without the customer knowing why. And this can help influence demand and inspire customers to make more ethical purchasing decisions themselves and more environmentally conscious purchasing decisions. And lastly, green advertising can be extremely effective at SSRC's locations, such as their Steamboat Grand Hotel, like Green Globe's logo. These types of eco-certifications brought more positive attitudes toward the ad itself, toward the hotel, and had a higher influence on purchase intention than ads with no mention of their green certification or hotels that did not have a green certification. And this was through a study at that done at Cornell Hospitality Quarterly. So if Steamboat Grand were to put up their Green Globe logo, customers would be more inclined to not only purchase things at Steamboat and return to Steamboat Grand and Steamboat Springs ski area, but maybe make more ethical purchasing decisions down the line.
So next we're going to talk about using Green Globe's criteria and standards to decrease environmental and climate change impacts at mountain resort destinations. So we're going to break this down into 3 areas. First, we'll talk about Serre Chevalier Valley Briançon certification and how they are benefiting from Green Globe. And next, we'll talk about Steamboat Springs Resort and their environmental impacts and how Green Globe certification standards would help them decrease negative impacts and move to some better practices. And then third, we'll talk about conservation and nature-based tourism. Serre Chevalier became Green Globe certified with little hesitation because they were aware of the excessive use of resources they used and the environmental impacts that this caused, and they wanted to improve on this because they wanted to improve on their practices for long-term benefits. As a resort in France, located in the European Union, there are a lot less barriers for certification and more incentives to have more sustainable practices for businesses. So the European Union has 2030 climate change targets, and these targets are for all members, and they include at least 40% cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, and they want to move towards a 32% share for renewable energy and at least 32.5% improvement in energy efficiency. So for businesses like this that use a lot of resources and could potentially waste a lot of resources, it's very important that they can improve in their practices so they can help France and the European Union meet these goals. So governance is really important when it comes to sustainable development. Goals like this can increase participation among private businesses for sustainable practices, as well as increase the possibility for public-private partnerships. So it's important for Steamboat to follow in their footsteps, and if they could adapt a certification mechanism, even though there aren't necessarily incentives in place in the United States for these climate change targets, they could set a trend for the North American ski industry, and everybody could move towards more sustainable practices. So some of the ways that Steamboat can reduce their environmental impact are by following those Green Globe certification standards. Some of the criteria include criteria for energy use and water use, and this would require Steamboat to measure their current consumption rates of these two resources. And once they do that, they can indicate the most consumptive resources, and they can establish measures to decrease overall consumption. Also, implementing sources of reusable energy can be a great way for them to reduce or possibly not waste energy. Greenhouse gas emissions should also be measured, and implementing ways to offset these emissions are essential for them to minimize climate change impacts. Another important criteria that Steamboat can improve upon is a sustainable waste management plan. Waste is a major pollutant that contributes to environmental degradation. Reducing waste streams and minimizing the amount of harmful substances and pollutants used are necessary for preserving the environment so recreation can continue to take place for generations. Green Globe believes that a life cycle approach to a waste management plan begins with purchasing practices through the coordination with local authorities on appropriate disposal. So this is where governance is going to be important for Steamboat to carry out these certification standards, because they're going to rely on the government to provide enough information and public-private coordination for sustainable waste management. This will also rely on businesses to use environmentally friendly products for their building materials and consumables when further tourism development occurs. To reduce environmental impacts, efforts are going to be necessary from the private and the public sector. Importantly, for conservation and nature-based tourism, places need to maintain their sense of place. The sense of place is very important because it can be the main reason that a tourist visits an area due to natural beauty or activities they're able to do only in those places. In Steamboat's case, people go there for some of the best skiing in the world and some other really fun winter snow sports, as well as just a good environment to be in, as well as they go there in the off season in summer just for beautiful environment and nice weather. So nature-based recreation activities are place-bound products, and so conservation can help maintain the environment and can help maintain some of the beauty and the reason that people want to go visit these places. Scenic landscapes and biodiversity have an economic value, and this will help increase tourist demand if these can be preserved. in today's tourism market, there are more conscious consumers than ever before, and they're searching for environmentally friendly products and services. This is a perfect opportunity for Steamboat Springs to show their corporate responsibility for conscious consumers and for the protection for the resources that their business success depends upon. As skiers and nature-based tourists demand corporate environmental responsibility, sustainable tourism has potential to drive growth in the world economy. And if the ski resorts in North America can start adopting some of these certification mechanisms, it can become a trend for the whole industry, and there will be long-lasting impacts for the whole ski industry. Finally, indirect climate change can devalue ski areas, natural resources, and community assets, so it's important to slow down the effects of this. Some of the negative effects that can happen in warmer seasons include invasive species and increased forest fire risks, which lead to higher insurance costs, devalue real estate, and recreational resources. So if they damage the environment too much during their winter seasons when they're operating their ski resort, it can have negative impacts for their off season and can really cause even more challenges for seasonality. And the possibility for reduced winter seasons causes even more threat of seasonality. This will have social and economic impacts on the local community, and so they'll need to figure this out before there's too many negative impacts. Transitioning to renewable energy sources and improving water use will be beneficial for businesses and increase possibilities for more recreation in other seasons and more sustainable recreation, especially in winter seasons. Green Globe certification standards would allow for steamboats to showcase their commitment to sustainability. This transparency would have positive socio-cultural impacts for the community as well for their business and tourists that are visiting. Improved environmental practices would improve ecosystem services and regulating services, help maintain the sense of place for residents, and show corporate social responsibility to the people who are impacted by their business practices. The level of impacts resulting from climate change are uncertain, but it's important that really exhaustive businesses act quickly because there are negative impacts, and if they can move towards more sustainable practices, it'll be better for the tourism industry as a whole and reduce negative impacts for everybody. So finally, we're going to move to our conclusion of this presentation. If Steamboat Springs was able to adopt Green Globe certification, it would ensure viability and prosperity for their business and for the community they operate in. Improved sustainable practices will help them maintain their dominance in the ski industry and help start trends for the North American ski industry to become more sustainable. Investing in certification will provide long-term returns in terms of economic benefits, social benefits, and environmental benefits, and slow down the effect of climate change. So adopting a certification mechanism is a very good long-term investment for tourism business, especially Steamboat Springs. So we have 3 questions to wrap up our presentation. First question is, what are some positive impacts of each area of the quadruple bottom line that ski resorts would benefit from a certification mechanism? The second question is a Green Globe certification an appropriate certification for Steamboat Springs Ski and Resort Corporation to apply? And the third question is, how should Steamboat Springs avoid greenwashing and candidly portray their sustainability efforts? So that's the end of our presentation, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to watching everybody else's. Thank you.